All right. Well, thank you everyone for being here today. I hope no matter what you teach, you will find something that will benefit you. Our topic is creating safety tests for CTE classes. It does say that it's geared for 5th through 12th grade, but honestly, I really think this is good information for anyone. And I say that because if your school is anything remotely like mine, sometimes this time of year, people get surprise invitations to come to the office to find out what they're teaching next year. And it may not be what you taught this year. Sometimes we also find that maybe for summer school, if you're signed up to teach summer school, you may think you're teaching 3rd grade, and at the last minute, they're shifting people around. So you never know what you might be teaching, but also it's great for all of our educators to get ideas what's going on in the CTE world, because a lot of people don't realize all that happens in the CTE world. And in case you're not familiar with that, career and technical education is what CTE stands for. So we'll go ahead and get started because your time is valuable. So the first thing, safety tests. They are a requirement for any career and technical education class that you take in the state of Tennessee. So if you are teaching a middle school STEM class, that's a CTE class more than likely, and it is a requirement to give a safety test. And a lot of teachers say to me, Leigh Anne, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And no one's really given me any directions. And I'll be honest, I struggled with this when I first started because I couldn't find any. I asked my supervisor and she said, well, just cover the things that you do in class. Well, that didn't really, I like a little more direction than that. So I went digging and I went asking people and I started Googling to find out what I needed. So what we're going to tackle today, what are the characteristics of an effective safety test and your safety culture in your classroom, and how to create this kind of environment, because we want all of our students, that includes our special needs students, to feel important, to feel included, and to be an important part of your class. So one of the first things I would say is I highly recommend that whatever you decide you're going to cover, make a study guide, a typewritten study guide. And then honestly, and it seems like a lot of trouble, but I promise you in the long run, it will save you an enormous amount of time. Make a video of yourself or of students helping you teach your safety lessons. I struggled my first couple of years because our school has almost like a revolving door. Sometimes we have students that, I've just finished teaching safety and kids move in. Well, I can't stop and tell my 20 kids that are in the classroom, hey guys, y'all just sit and twiddle your thumbs because I've got to spend a whole class period going over safety. But I also can't tell the brand new kid who just walked in, hey, too bad you missed it, dude. You can't do anything the rest of the school year. That was a real struggle for me. And so I this year made a video. I had a couple of kids whose moms worked at our school, who gave permission for them to be on it. And we ended up having to make 2 videos because it was kind of lengthy, because I wanted to make sure we covered all the rules. So now when I have a student that moves in, I have a paper copy of our study guide. I have it on our Google Classroom. And then I have the 2 safety videos that I made on our Google Classroom. So I can say, welcome, so glad you're here. Let me get you caught up. Here's where your study guide is. Here's where the videos will be. And you can watch them over and over. If you have any questions, let me know. And it has saved me an enormous amount of work. So when we talk about, and if you have any questions at any point, please feel free to ask, feel free to put it in the chat. Dr. Adams is real good about letting me know if there's something in the chat that I'm missing. So, but by all means, I want to cover what you need. But when we talk about an effective safety test, now a lot of this information is stuff that I got from the State Department, but I had to do a lot of searching to find it. But the state says that you need to include technical knowledge and skills that are necessary for your students to participate safely in your course for required activities. But it needs to be very subject specific. So any kind of handling or storing of equipment and tools, that needs to be included. If you have any processes or procedures, and the key there is that it's unique to your environment. So you need to cover those. If you have any, and this is more for high school folks, but any governing rules, regulations, or laws, especially anything that they would see in post-secondary training or in the workplace. Because CTE, it doesn't matter if you're in middle school, we're still trying to get these students prepared for their path, for whatever that is, when they leave high school. So you want to make sure that you're trying to cover all of those things. So for example, handling and storing of equipment. It may be, if you're doing science, you may have, like we're working on getting things ready for our science fair. So getting equipment, things out, whether it's vinegar or food coloring or any of those kind of things that they probably don't use in other places. That might be something you would need. Tools, we use hot glue guns. That's not something that they're going to use in most classrooms. We use cardboard cutters. We have, different things that we have extension reels above our tables. Those are all things they don't have in other classrooms. So it's very important that our kids know how to use and handle those things. When you start looking at what the state gives us for our standards, because you know how everything is, you go back to your standards. There really are only two basic things that are listed according to the state. And so the core standards are in safety. 1.1, basically, it just says that you need to accurately read and interpret safety rules, but they're not limited to what the National Science Teachers Association has. And you'll notice I've put a link there to the NSTA, what their minimum safety practices and regulations are. And then any occupational safety and health, so OSHA, and then any state or national requirements. So the two links that I've given you there, one is to NSTA. The other one is to where I found the information, the only information that I could find that the state gives us, because I felt like you needed to have that to look back from. A little bit later, I will show you some examples of my safety tests, and I used these sources to determine what my things would be. You'll notice that I've got the word electrical in red. I did that more for myself than anything, because if you're going to have students that are plugging in anything, hot glue guns, microscopes, anything like that, it's a good idea to make sure. And I know we think, well, anybody should be able to plug stuff into an electrical outlet. Yes, they should, but we also know some of our students make really poor decisions. So, reviewing with them those kinds of safety things that go along with electricity is a great idea. More just to cover you than anything. The second standard under safety is about equipment. So to identify and explain what things are intended to be, how they're intended to be used for your equipment. That may mean inspecting things. So like one of my rules is, if a hot glue gun looks damaged, you don't use it. Or it may be how to properly use something or how you maintain it. So an example of that would be like with my hot glue guns. I tell the kids, you don't start squeezing the trigger until you're sure that the hot glue gun has gotten hot enough. Because if you start trying to squeeze the trigger and it's not melted, you're going to break the mechanism inside. So we want to teach them how to inspect things, how to use things, and how to maintain them and operate them safely. And one of the things that the state tells you is they have to do this with 100% accuracy. Now, that usually sends the kids in a tailspin because they start going, I have to make a 100? Yes, you do. Now, the state doesn't say that they have to make a 100% the very first time they take it, but they will have to make a 100% for it to meet the state requirements. And another thing that you will find on those two links is that we have to provide our safety equipment. So that may mean safety glasses or safety goggles. That may mean gloves or finger or hand protection, whatever, or aprons to keep things from splashing on us. I probably shouldn't say this now, but the good news is if you're on this Zoom with us today, you will receive those things as a happy for joining us. But I'll tell you about that later. Okay, so how can students be assessed? So this is straight from the Tennessee Department of Ed. But one thing I will tell you, and you'll see on my screen, you must document how, when, and who did this assessing if you don't have a written paper trail. So I prefer a written test because I keep those. I mean, I still have them. They're in a box in my room and it says safety tests, because if I ever need to pull that out, you know, if a kid gets hurt, I can pull that out and I can show where that child in his or her own handwriting answered my questions. So, you know, cover your assets. If you're like me, I like my house and I want to keep it. So a written exam is my preference, but the state does allow for modeling. So you can actually have a child model how to do something. You can do role play. You can give an oral exam. Authentic interaction. You can do the I do, we do, you do. You can give them multiple opportunities to practice or multiple opportunities to assess. You can do it in one big chunk, one big written exam. I pretty much do that. I do it at the beginning of the school year. I teach it. We take the tests. They may need to take it again a couple of times, whatever. But I do it then. Some teachers break it into parts. You know, they only give an assessment for things that they're going to do that grading period. That's up to you. I do have a couple of extra assessments that if I have some advanced students and they're wanting to use, you know, things like wood carving. Well, that's not something every kid's going to use, or wood burning, or the sewing machine, for example. Some of those kinds of things. You may want to have a separate assessment just for the kids that have an interest in that. Soldering iron, for example. Those would be things that you might, you know, have a standalone exam for. Now, sometimes I have done that where I've videoed the student telling me all the rules and showing me how to use it, and I save that. You know, that would count as my, it's not paper trail, but a digital trail, so that I can show that the students have proven that they know how to do that. But you have a lot of choices. I will say this, with my special needs students, I have, you know, I've got some kids that they struggle with the writing exam. So I usually go to the inclusion teacher or the extended resource teacher, and I say, hey, these are things we're doing. What do you think your student or our student is capable of doing? So sometimes I've had those teachers that said, I'll go over all this with them. I can give them the test and read it to them and let them answer it. I would recommend if you do that, that's a great way to do, but I would document on there, this test was given by, put the teacher's name and put the date, so that, you know, you have more documentation of who all was part of that process. I may have some people on here that have done different things. And if you have, feel free to stop me or share it in the comments. But does anybody have anything they'd like to add here? If you do, just unmute yourself and jump in. Okay. Well, since I didn't hear anybody, whoops, we'll go to the next one. This is something I think is very important, is signage. Especially with tools and things, maybe the first time they've used there, you'll get a copy of this presentation. And you'll notice that this right here is just a copy of a hot glue gun safety rules. So I have a poster that I've made. You can print it whatever size you need, that goes over all the rules that I use. And I just found this online somewhere, and kind of adapted it for hot glue guns. So never touch the tip. Always keep them standing up, just the basic rules. If that doesn't work for you, or if you want some other things, if you'll go to Teacher Pay Teacher and just search lab safety posters, secondary science, humor, there's some great ones and they're free. Also on TPT, there's if you search free science lab safety activities and safety posters, tons of stuff there. You can also find safety contracts. Those work as well. If you want to, as some extra protection, have your students and have them take it home and have the parents sign the safety contract. That doesn't necessarily negate having to have a safety test, but it's just extra benefits for you. It also lets the parents know, because you might have a parent that says, oh, I don't think my child is mature enough to handle this. And also, if you've got some special needs students and you think the parents will be unhappy if you aren't really communicating with them, this is a great opportunity with a safety contract to let them know. But that's just some examples of some things that will help you, because just because a kid passes a safety test, even with that 100, doesn't mean they're going to always remember everything. So that's why I try to put signs and reminders up in my classroom, because I think that really helps kids remember, and it helps the other students remind, their friends, hey, don't forget, you got to do this. And some of you may have some great safety posters and things that you would like to share. So if you do, by all means, drop them in the chat. I'm always learning, so I like to learn from others as well. Whoops, excuse me. All right, so the biggest thing that I have found with making safety tests is I just wanted to see somebody else's test, because I didn't know what I was doing. And so I asked some different friends, and, what do you have? And honestly, I struggled. I couldn't find anybody. So I have some links on here for you. The first one is actually my computer science safety test. I've got to teach computer science next year, and I've been working on my safety test. Luckily, I have some friends that teach on the 9th grade level, and I was able to get their safety test and get some ideas to kind of help me get started. Some of it was very beneficial. Some of it was maybe a little over my kid's head, but it gave me a starting point. So that's why I'm putting these on here for you. I'm not saying they are perfect for what you need. I'm just kind of showing you some to see if that doesn't spark, your mind and help you think about some things. So the first link will be my computer science safety test. And the next one is my safety test for my STEM classes. The third link is from Flynn Science. They have a whole section, which I used, borrowed some of their great ideas for their safety contracts and their safety exams. You'll have all these links. And then also Madison Schools, and I can't remember if that was in Tennessee or somewhere else. I was just Googling and I found theirs, and it had some great things. And I borrowed some of their ideas. And then the last link is one I had found. Another teacher in our system had said she was using it as well, but it's ikeepsafe.org, and they've got some great resources for teaching safety. But it gives you some really good ideas on things you might want to use. But maybe those links will help you as you're developing safety tests. And I should say, just because you're not a CTE teacher, like if you're a science teacher, you may want to do some safety tests, even if you're not officially CTE. If you're going to have the kids in the lab, or if you're going to have them using any kind of supplies or materials, it's not a bad idea. Cover your assets, because it's always a good idea. No administrator is ever going to be upset with you because you covered safety standards and gave students, made them assess knowing how to use things properly. All right. So I told you that everybody that was here with us today, you will receive some safety glasses. You will receive some aprons, the plastic kind that, not the disposable, but none of these are disposable. Some safety gloves for like cut proof, and then some fingertip covers. Those are used for using hot glue guns. So I hope those will be things that will help you get an idea. I just went through and picked some things, and I said to Dr. Adams, I said, I really think all of our participants need these, because if we're going to talk about safety, one of the first things that I said was we're required by law to provide those things. And so if we don't provide them, then that's on us. So I hope that will be something that you will find beneficial. I know I've probably gone pretty fast, but I'm hoping that some of you may have some things that you are thinking. Maybe you've been thinking about a question or something that's pressing. What can we talk about? So by all means, unmute yourself and jump in. Dr. Adams, do you see anything in the chat that we can discuss?
We have lots of thank yous in the chat for what they'll get today, but we have a very quiet group today.
Okay. But we would be happy to address anything. So if there's a question you have or something you're not sure about, I know when I started, I was looking everywhere for somebody to talk to. What do I do? Because I was really nervous that I was going to make a mistake. And then I found out the state gives so few guidelines. They really leave it up to the teachers. Any questions? Anything I can talk to you about that will help you?
You have a chat from Destin Johnson. She says, do you suggest one lengthy test or a few small tests on different topics?
Okay, that's a great question. It really kind of depends on your group of students. So if you're giving a test, and I know I said they're for CTE classes, but y'all, my third graders have to take the test before they can use hot glue guns or cardboard cutters. Now, I don't let them use they have to use the low temp glue guns, and they don't get to use the really sharp cardboard cutters. But I let third grade if they can pass the test. I will be honest, it's hard for them. They have to work really hard at it because they're not used to anything like that. So, with third grade, it might be a good idea to break it up. It's really just up to your students what you think they're capable of. I have just kind of given it all at one time, and because I didn't want to make a ton of different videos, because we have, I do kindergarten through 8th grade. So I have 9 grade levels of kids that I see. So I have nearly 800 students. So for me, I just have to know you've passed the safety test, and then I can go from there. And sometimes I have kids that cannot pass it. And, they still can come to STEM. They still can participate, but they know they're not allowed to use certain tools like the hot glue guns and the cardboard cutters and things like that. They just know that. So today, for example, I had a special needs child, and she was not able to pass it. And so I told her, I said, that doesn't mean you can't participate. It means if you need something cut, you let me know and I will cut it for you. So she took a permanent marker. She had a Pringles can. She needed a rectangle cut out of it today. I cut it for her. So it's not that they can't participate. It's just she wasn't, I don't think anybody that knows this child would want them to have a pair of sharp cardboard cutters in her hand. But it just is a good way to protect yourself. So it's really up to you. I like doing the one big test because I can knock it out at the beginning of the year. And if a kid moves in, they've got the videos and the study guide. But, you have to, in everything in teaching, you got to make it work for you.
I'm glad you brought out the point of if you have a student move in. I was going to ask you how you handled that when you have new students come in. So you kind of addressed that. I will say, another chat, Miss Valerie says that she will definitely be making an art safety exam. They have lots of sharp objects and chemicals.
Yes. I'm telling you, you've got to cover yourself in this day and age. When you have people that sue McDonald's because their coffee is hot, that just tells you as teachers, you need to cover yourself. And this is the best way.
I agree. I would like to say one thing. When I was teaching high school chemistry and biology, I also had my students do safety tests and safety contracts. And that really does cover your tail. I did have one student about 10 years ago decided that it was funny to stick a paper clip into the outlet at our lab stations. And that was the day that we were ready to start using Bunsen burners. Had the gas been on, that would have been a much more problematic issue than had it not. And at first, my administration was going to be very lax on how we were going to handle that. But then when they realized, yes, I was nearly ready to turn on the main valve for our gas to be able to use the Bunsen burners, indicated that they had the safety test, showed them that the expectations, that really changed how that gave me the support that I needed with my administration to make sure that this student understood the seriousness of what he had done.
Absolutely. And
Lana,
it puts the responsibility back on the student.
absolutely. Lana Kennedy says that she teaches special needs K-5 self-contained. I am going to teach some life skills. I will definitely incorporate safety tests for the objects I plan on using, even if I do not plan on them using them, just so they understand why not to touch certain things.
That's a great point. I do, my special needs kids, I try my best to make it where they can use these tools. Some of them they don't feel comfortable with, and that's fine. But, we've got to prepare our kids for life beyond the school. And we want our kids to be safe. And that's just crucial. All right. Unless we have something else, I'm going to go to my next slide. Because we're kind of getting to the end of it, guys. So if you've got something, you need to jump in and let us know, because we're happy to help you. And by the way, if you think of something later, like let's say tonight you're laying in bed and something crosses your mind, my email is on here. By all means, feel free to shoot me an email. I'm not saying I have all the answers, but I'm saying I know how to Google and work and find people and, network with people to get ideas. So, it's a great way to help each other. So speaking of that, on behalf of the Northwest Tennessee STEM Hub, thank you for joining. And there's my name and my contact information. And I want to put in a couple of plugs here. We have a Facebook page. It's the Northwest Tennessee STEM Hub. And when she emails this to you, the links will all will work for you. But we would love for you to like our Facebook page if you haven't. That's also a great place to see upcoming events. We're going to have some put on there in the next day or two. And we'll have links to things that we have happening. It's a great place for you to ask questions because, we need to learn from each other. And I learned just as much from you guys as you'll ever learn from me. So it's a great way for us to connect and have a good base to find information. And we also have a YouTube channel where we put all of our videos series that we've been working on. So all you have to do is look up Northwest Tennessee STEM Hub, and you'll find past episodes and things that might help you. And those of you that have been with us before know we always need for you to fill out a survey for us. I promise it does not take no more than, a minute or two at the most. I've even given you the answer to the first 3 questions. One of them says, which group you're working with. So don't just put West Tennessee. Be sure you find the Northwest Tennessee STEM Innovation Hub, and it'll say Dyersburg on the end. So that's us. And then it'll have what date, and you'll put today's date, and then what's the course called, creating safety tests for CTE classes. And then the rest of it is up to you. And I don't see that. So feel free to be honest, but just tell us, because that helps us know, if you find things that are beneficial, if, what you need. But we want to make anything we do benefit you and help you as a teacher, because we have a tough job and we need all the help we can get. So, we will ask, so you'll be getting this. So when you do, please answer that survey. And I don't know, Shauna, if you want me to try to put that in the chat today or not, but if you do, I can. And then you will receive a $50 stipend for, I left the word stipend out, sorry. You will receive a $50 stipend for attending today. But if this is your first one that you've done with us, I have 2 colons, sorry about that. You have to fill out a W-9 and submit it to Tiffany Feltner. And the link is there. I know it looks long, but that's your link. You'll click on it. You need to answer question number 1 on 3A, put that you're an individual. Line 5 and 6, your address, your social security number, sign and date it. And if you will send it to Miss Tiffany, we need you to do that within 2 weeks. If you've already done one, don't worry about it. You don't have to do any more. You only have to do it once. But if you haven't, please do that. And like I said, submit it within the next 2 weeks so that you can get your $50 stipend. All right. Any other questions? Right.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining. Leigh Anne, thank you so much for the workshop that you offered today. We all know that safety tests are of paramount importance when we're making sure that we're keeping our kids safe and that we're covering our assets. That's very important. Thank you all for joining us. You will get a follow-up email with all of the links that Miss Leigh Anne shared out with you today, as well as the resources that she shared today. And just to reiterate, if you've already completed the W-9, you do not have to fill out another one. You only have to do that one time, and then we have your information. But if you're interested in the stipend and you haven't filled it out, you have to fill it out in order to get paid from the stipend. Again, I will send out an email with all of the updates from this and with the workshop survey link as well. And in the meantime, if you have any questions, be sure to reach out to either Miss Leigh Anne or myself, and we'll be happy to help you.
Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you all. Y'all have a great day.